So hello, I'm Paul Morgan from BMF. I'm here today with Marisa, a rider at Motorcycle Live. And Marisa, I just thought I'd ask you, how did you get into biking? You know, what are your passions?
I got into biking 20 years ago. I used to ride horses off-road, and I wanted that sense of freedom and that sense of community. My riding instructor's husband brought his bike over. I went pillion, and it's something that I wanted to do, and I absolutely love it. It's my life.
And what bike do you ride?
I've got 4 bikes. I've got a Gixxer 750. I've got a Ducati Scrambler full throttle. I've got an off-road Beta Alp 200, and I treat myself to a Triumph Speed Twin 1200.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
I like my garage.
And what are the things at the moment which are sort of, you know, concerning you with riding bikes on the roads in the UK?
Big concerns for me are, well, the state of the roads for one. There's a reason I have an off-road bike, because the potholes on a GSX-R are not fun. So obviously budgets, money being cut, and the state of the roads is one thing. The 20 mile an hour versus the 30 mile an hour is massively confusing. And actually the mislabeling of some of the roads. So where is it 20, where is it 30, where is it 40? So how do we know if we're riding to the speed limit? That's another thing. Depending upon where you live as well, I mean, obviously the standard of driving has gone down terribly in cars since COVID. That's a big problem, I would say, for people's awareness of bikes anyway. And there's congestion, so if you live rurally, great, but if you live in Surrey or a congested area, it's just, the roads are too busy, so that's why off-road was a great route for me as well.
So you mentioned the standard of sort of car drivers at the moment. What do you think needs to be done about that?
That's a really good question. I mean, fundamentally training, as a motorcyclist I do a lot of training, but once you pass your driving test, hazard awareness, hazard perception, awareness of other road users, campaigns will obviously help from an education perspective. I think there's things being done brilliantly on motorways in terms of the signage with don't use the lane etiquettes, but the amount of people that are just, second lane, third lane hoggers is terrible. So I think something needs to be done by, say, the traffic officers in terms of policing that, because obviously that creates problems as well.
And you mentioned sort of problems with congestion at the moment, and one of the things that BMF is sort of lobbying for is for motorcyclists to be able to use bus lanes as a normal thing of riding. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think if there is a guidance about where you ride, where and when you ride, then yes. I think from a safety perspective, particularly in somewhere like London or Birmingham, that's great. But obviously pedestrians, cyclists also need to be aware of that. So I think, again, there's rules of the road that would need to be agreed. I'd be really interested to find out more about that. Okay.
And in terms of road design and actually designing in more safety into roads, particularly working with local authorities, working with central government, I mean, are there any sort of issues there you think we should be taking forward in terms of road design?
Things I've seen, I think it was overseas, is almost the road markings depending upon the distance in where you are to a corner, to a junction. So Ibiza, I was so impressed by how they did their white lines, so you could actually, all motorists could actually read the road better. Yeah. So even something straightforward like that, I think, would be.
And what do you think about electric bikes? Quite a lot of electric bikes here at Motorcycle Live on display. What's your feeling?
I'm curious. So I have taken an electric bike out. I absolutely loved it, considering I have 4 ice-powered bikes in my garage. I'm tempted, but they're not there for me yet. From an off-road perspective, I'm really interested because, again, from the nature, environment, peace and quiet perspective, not scaring other green lane users, brilliant. From an on-road perspective, again, that awareness of other motorists. I've ridden one in rush hour around Peterborough Ring Road. People couldn't hear you coming.
Yeah.
So again, there's a safety element there. But to be honest, the big thing for me is mileage and range, which is why it's not feasible for me at the moment.
Yeah.
And also, again, friends that are green laning where you can't, then the charging infrastructure obviously needs a lot more support. And then the batteries, because what is happening long term? How are they lasting? And what happens to them at the end of life when they have that short lifespan?
So the UK government is heading for net zero target of 2050, decarbonisation, moving away from ICE machines 2030 at the moment, might change after the announcement on cars.
Yeah.
But do you think that's the right strategy to sort of just focus on electric bikes, or do you think there are other alternatives, e-fuels for example, which should be explored as a means of getting there?
I don't think it's the right option for bikes, no, because ultimately when you look at, let's say, the environmental damage and the contribution that motorcycling makes versus other transport, other industries, I think they're focusing their efforts in the wrong place. Right. And I think it's having a negative impact on the industry. So yes, I'd like to see other fuel alternatives, and I'd like to see things not in one focused direction and actually really consider all the available alternatives.
Yeah. So what is it that you actually love about motorcycling?
The sense of freedom, the sense of community, open road, the mental health benefits. It adds a whole quality of life to my life, and the minute you meet another biker, there is straight away a mutual respect and understanding. And actually we're always learning, we're always developing if we want to keep ourselves safe on the road.
Okay, and finally, if there was one thing you wanted BMF to take forward in their discussions with ministers about motorcycling in general, what would it be?
Yeah. The one thing is we are an ageing motorcycling nation, and we really need to get more youngsters in. As you can hear, I'm very passionate about motorcycling, this industry, and actually it's price prohibitive, and again the difficulty in getting licensing is so hard and so complicated for the youngsters. That needs to change. That really needs to change. 3 young ladies asked me only last weekend, how do I get into biking? Even I have trouble explaining it to them. They're starting off their young lives, they're all in professional jobs and their careers, and it's how do they afford it, how do they go about it, what can they ride, where can they train. Finding out that information is really difficult. And then obviously with the licence, A2 restrictions, what bikes, I think Italy and the other countries have got it a lot more right than we do, and that definitely needs to change.
Okay, and I saw on your t-shirt Sweet Lamb Ladies.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So Sweet Lamb Ladies, so I've been wanting to ride off-road for 20 years, and I finally found a bike short enough. And again, I wanted to ride safely, so I went and booked myself some training, and I went to Sweet Lamb in Wales, and it was ladies only weekend. There were 20 of us, and we're all encouraging each other more and more now to build our confidence, ride off-road and explore, and that in itself is exceptional. Made a lot of friends through it already.
Okay, well, it's been great talking to you today, and thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.